Here at Psych with Mike, we are committed to delivering the best, clinically sound psychology information that we possibly can to our audience. Brett and I have decades of clinical experience as well as educational experience, and we want to make sure that we're able to deliver that to the audience and that always be free. So after 2 years, to be able to take the show to the next level, we are going to open ourselves up to advertising. But before that can happen, we need everybody who hears this message to follow the link that is on the show notes on the podcast page or is on the show notes in the YouTube. Click on that link and fill out a survey that is literally 10 seconds long, so it won't take you more than 10 seconds. Do it right now. I'll wait. Okay, so see, that was really fast and really easy, and it's going to help us to be able to attract advertisers to the show and be able to take the show to the next level. Thanks for listening, and we hope that you enjoy Psych with Mike.
Get angry.
About what?
I don't care. We get angry about anything.
Get angry.
Puff up, swell up like a toad, get that look off your face.
Welcome into the Psych with Mike Library. This is Dr. Michael Mahan, and I'm here with Mr. Brett Newcomb.
Good morning.
We're angry.
I'm not.
No.
I just don't like angry people.
We did have a conversation before we went live about when you go to somebody's house, how do you know that the towel that's provided for you is safe to use?
In the coronavirus era,
Yeah.
I think you have to assume that it might not be.
Right.
Yeah.
So then there's that.
Of course, I'm not going to people's houses.
No.
Because it's
right.
dangerous.
Yeah, 'cause you're
I'm
not
social isolating,
Yeah.
wearing a mask and staying home.
Yeah.
Where I have my own towels and I know where they've been.
Which probably isn't better, but
Well, you know.
so recently we were talking about our family of origins, and we were talking about the AFFECT, affective result of that, how we deal with emotional information. And one of the things that we talked about is that for a lot of men in our society, the default emotion is anger. So people,
It's supposed to be a masculine display.
Yeah.
Comes with the testosterone.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're, stoic and never, cry in the old John Wayne movie, you knew when it was supposed to be the emotional climax of the movie if one of the cowboys got a little tear in his eye.
It trickles slowly out of his
Yeah.
eye, and then the
Yeah.
camera goes to the
against his
close-up.
better judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've always thought that is just so freaking ridiculous.
I grew up in that house.
Well, I grew up in that house as well, but
I don't think I ever saw my father cry about anything. I saw him explode. I saw him beat
Yeah.
people up. I saw all kinds of violent things. And I was taught that I was not allowed to cry.
Yeah.
So crying for me is not an easily accessible experience.
Well, and I do this all the time in therapy. I say, big boys don't.
And I say, pay the bill.
Pay the bill. Cry.
Yeah, I know the right answer.
Fear is a sign of
I can't play this game. I'm not quick
weakness.
enough. Yeah, thank you.
And so people, I've literally asked those questions tens of thousands of times. No one's ever given me
A wrong answer.
a different answer. And
Because you'd hit them.
Well, I
Make you mad.
think it's because in our society we are conditioned to believe these things, and that's 50% of the human emotional spectrum that people are being told is not okay to experience or express.
Are women told that as children?
Well, I don't know. I mean, women can answer the questions.
Yeah.
So, obviously it is.
Because I know as a male I was taught those things.
Yeah, it's a part of the collective unconscious of our society.
Well, part of the gender divide. How many of the emotions can I access to use when I need to use them? And if I'm taught this one you can't have. For instance, I was taught you can't be angry. Because if you're angry, then it's like the young bull and the old bull threatens the old bull. So the old bull then gets more angry. And it was a very destructive experience for me to display any
Right.
anger.
Right.
So I had to display other things. And so I know your 4 feeling descriptors, and I don't know where I fit in those, because what I learned was, and I learned it pre-verbally, and I think children generally do.
Everybody does.
Yeah, and so, for instance, we used to talk about people that were bipolar, and the theory that as infants, pre-verbal infants, they had to learn the distinction between good mom and bad mom. And they learn it non-verbally. The sound of the mom's voice, the expression of her face, the tension in her body would say, it's a dangerous time to be here, and the child would learn to split off and go away. Or it would say, oh, hi, honey, are you having a good day? Come here, let me give you a hug. And so the child would, blossom. So as children, we learn to internalize our ability to read the nonverbals of others and to develop responses that are appropriate.
Right. And so the 4 primary emotions are glad, mad, sad, and scared. And the reason is because that's the way your body can develop a hormone-based reaction to external events.
Well, 3 out of the 4 are negative.
Well, you say that. There's 2 are positive, 2 are negative. So
Sad is positive?
sad is positive. And the reason is
scared.
because what my dividing line is does the emotion make you feel better afterwards or make you feel worse based on the physiological response? And so sadness actually creates the largest release of oxytocin and endorphins in the human body that the human body can ever experience. Sadness as an evolutionary tool.
So our goal should be to make our wives and children sad? It's in your best interest.
Be
Get
sad. Be sad ourselves. The goal is to be sad ourselves, not to make other people sad.
Okay.
To be able to be sad ourselves and be able to freely express that. And so when people say, oh, if you go out into society and you express sadness.
That's paradoxical. You have to be sad so you can feel good?
Yes.
Okay. Glad.
But so you can feel glad and feel good without being sad. But that's the reason why sadness evolved is because if we have loss in our lives, we experience sadness and then we get a tremendous positive boost and then we are able to carry on. That's the whole point of being sad. But we prevent ourselves from being able to experience that emotion genuinely and wholly because people say, well, if you're happy that that person died, well, then you didn't like them very much. But that's ridiculous. No, you're supposed to be sad and then you're supposed to be okay. That's not disrespectful.
And some people are taught you're supposed to be glad because now they're not in pain anymore. Now they're with God. Now they don't hurt.
Well, I mean that, and
you should be happy for them that they're dead.
But the people say that as a way of helping you avoid the process of being sad. No, we're not supposed to be glad that they're dead.
Yeah, they try to take it away from me. Don't expose me to that because I don't want to experience it.
Right. Yeah. But we're just supposed to experience the sadness. And I'm not saying that the sadness isn't profound or prolonged. Pathologic grief is not diagnosed until 12 months after the initiating event.
Yeah.
So you get a whole year, and I'm not even saying that that's even the definitive cutoff, but the point is you can be sad for a long time if you have to process a tremendous loss, but the end result is that your body feels better after you experience the emotion.
Yeah.
And so that makes it a positive emotion.
But see, I think that
it's like the Flaming Lips song. Do you realize that happiness makes you cry? The most extreme form of happiness are tears.
I just think it's a reductionist argument when you say there's the 4 basic emotions, and they may be the 4 basic emotions, but then you get into the Piagetian concept of and Noam Chomsky about developing language that allows discriminatory identification. So I think empathy is a combination of glad and sad, and that if we don't develop the ability to feel empathic, we can't connect to somebody else. If I can't feel what you're feeling, if I can't relate to that and experience it, how can I relate to you?
The difference between a primary and a secondary emotion is that secondary emotions require the development of differentiation of self. So primary emotions are only based on biology. Secondary emotions require, at 18 months, the individual begins to recognize that they are different. And the way that they test this is that they would put makeup rouge on the end of a child's nose, show them a mirror. So a child that doesn't have differentiation of self looks in the mirror, nothing happens. As soon as the child has differentiation of self, they'll rub their own nose because they know that that's a representation of me in that mirror. So once you develop a differentiation of self, then a whole new spectrum of emotion comes online, like envy. You can't have envy without differentiation of self. So all of those other things, empathy, you can't have empathy without differentiation of self. So that differentiation of self then brings online a whole new form,
So that
spectrum
comes
of emotion.
about 9 months developmentally after object permanence develops.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
have to recognize that that's not me,
Right.
and this is me.
Yeah.
And then you're saying that I can learn to recognize that's me with something on my nose. Mm-hmm. Okay. Or
Yeah.
in the mirror.
Yeah.
Which might be a reflection of me, but isn't me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I can alter the real me
Yeah.
to change that reflection in the mirror.
Cool.
Yeah. So when we're just talking about those primary emotions, though, you would have glad, mad, sad, and scared even if you never developed language.
Yeah.
So dogs can get glad, mad, sad, and scared, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think so.
There's no question. They have the same biological capacity. They have a limbic system which controls those emotional states, the same as human beings.
It could just be anthropomorphic. I mean, I'm looking at an animal that can't communicate verbally, and I'm assigning verbal interpretations to the behavior that I see.
I think we're smart enough to recognize that our dogs get sad, that our dogs get mad. I mean, we've seen dogs
Yeah,
behave those
absolutely,
ways.
and you have to label that.
The difference is that the dog won't buy an assault rifle and hide behind the couch and wait for your ass to come home at night.
He would if he could.
Right, because he doesn't have
Yeah.
opposable thumbs, so he
Yeah,
can't
there
pull
you
the
go.
trigger.
Right.
No, it's because dogs don't have money. They can't buy guns.
Oh, is that it? Okay.
Yeah.
And
No,
they're
it's
not, they're
because
not licensed in Missouri like
Exactly.
everything else.
That's
Yeah.
right. No, dogs won't do that because they don't ruminate. So they don't feed the negative emotion back on itself over and
Always
over
happy
again.
to see me, even if I'm abusive. When I first
Exactly.
come in, it's like a reset. Oh, hi, there's you. Oh,
But
need to be
human
scared.
beings continue to feed the negative thoughts on themselves over and over again, and they are able to perpetuate then the negative emotion.
So rumination is a process,
Yeah.
not a feeling.
Yes.
Okay.
Rumination is just feeding the negative thought. It's just thinking about something over and over again.
Yeah.
Persification is another form of rumination.
Wow, I love it when you talk like this.
But so here's my thing. Like when my kids were little, I'm not even joking. This actually happened. If we said, "Oh, let's go see a movie," my kids would only they would look at the movie. They would give it a rating for how likely it was to make me cry, and then is it a time of day when some of their friends might conceivably be in the movie theater, and that's how they would decide if they would go see a movie with me. Because I am notorious for the minute a movie starts, I start crying.
Yeah.
And we went to see, so last year on my son's birthday, The Lion King, the live action version of Lion King came out. That was my son's favorite movie when he was young. So we took him to The Lion King for his birthday. And there's this little boy. So my whole family is sitting as far away from me as they can get. And so my wife is sitting next to me. Then
And you think
on
it's
my left
because
side.
they don't want to be embarrassed if you cry.
Yeah.
There
No,
may
I
be
know.
other reasons. Yeah.
I'm pretty well. There might be other reasons, but I think that's because. So my wife's sitting on my left-hand side. On my right-hand side is a little like 8-year-old boy, and then his mother, and then the wall.
Yeah.
And so I didn't start crying the moment that the opening
So is
title
it the
ran.
John Wayne trickle? The eyes just barely.
Oh God, no!
It's just like sob and heave.
It's verbally apparent, and there's snot rags involved. I mean, I'm crying, and the boy, you can tell that he wants to try and make it better. Whenever he's like reaching up. Yeah, and his mom at one point says,
Don't touch his snot.
"Leave that man alone." And so my wife says to me,
Yeah.
you need to stop because you are ruining this for that child. And I said, I am expressing appropriate emotional reactions to this child.
you're
and
modeling
it
for
might
him.
be the
Yeah.
only
This is good
time
for
he
him.
ever gets to see it.
Yeah, no kidding. A grown man cry.
But so if I go to a movie theater and people say that,
Don't sit by me.
because why?
Because you're going to start.
And it makes them feel uncomfortable.
Well, yeah.
All right, let's put a pin in that. We're going to come back to that. We're going to run to our break, and we'll be back in just a second. Here at Psych with Mike, we are committed to delivering to you the best psychology information that we possibly can. And we want to make sure that that's always free. So we need everybody to go to the link that is in the show notes on the podcast page or in the show notes on the YouTube page and fill out a really quick, less than 10-second survey. That's going to help us to be able to attract advertisers to the show. That's going to let us take the show to the next level while still delivering the show in a free format. So please help us out. Share that information with everybody in your family, everybody that you know. The more responses that we get, the faster that we can get monetized, the faster that we can attract high quality advertisers. We are committed to screening every advertiser that comes onto the show. So we're not going to be selling you things that we don't agree with or that we don't think are appropriate for the content of the show. But we do want to be able to upgrade the technical quality and the overall look of the show. So help us out. Go right now, click that link, fill out the survey, tell everybody you know to go and fill out the survey, and we really appreciate it. Thanks, and if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike. Okay, we're back, and I was talking about being in the movie theater. If I go to a movie theater and I start crying, people see that as a weakness.
So I was trying to be really good because I don't want to invade your privacy.
Hey.
But clinically, I would ask the question, are you more comfortable watching on a screen and feeling the release of these emotions than you are in real life? If you're in a room with me and I share something really sad, do you cry?
Oh, yeah.
Or do you just sit stoically in the therapist chair?
What I have done is I have tried to do less of that in therapy. Back, 15 years ago, I would become a blubbering mess. And one of the things, and I would tell myself, I'm modeling good, effective responsiveness. Yeah. But I also recognize that too much of that is probably detrimental as well, because I'm supposed to be modeling effective emotional regulation, which is also self-soothing.
Well, you're also supposed to be doing more than just modeling. You're supposed to be listening and interpreting and guiding my experience of reality. So you answered my question. Would you cry if I shared something really sad? And would that I would, because genuine?
You've seen me cry.
Well, I know, but we're talking to the audience out there that doesn't see that. And I think clinically, that question is one for people that want to be clinicians. Mm-hmm. How real, how genuine, how visible are you? I mean, we know clinicians that say you can never expose any of your private self. Mm-hmm. You have no pictures on the wall. Right. You don't decorate personally, thematically. You don't have Star Wars stuff because you just have a blank environment, and then you are a blank environment because they have to project themselves onto you, and they need a blank sheet to be able to do that. And we have other friends that are clinicians that say, no, it's an interactive dance. You have to relate to them, show them that you are real and human, and that you experience them genuinely as they are experiencing the moment. So, I come down on that side.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
And, I think the other side is really just an expression of the insecurity on the part of those people.
Or control and power, which are themes that
either one
people go into therapy for.
Right. But, my message to the world is that crying is a really good thing. I want to promote myself as a as a professional
I
crier.
used to say to my son, "You're going to cry whether you want to or not, because you need to learn how to cry."
Right.
Yeah.
And I want to promote that as an alternative
Being
to
facetious
this
here.
aggression. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I want to promote that to people in society as an alternative to the anger that we feel, because here's my thing. So first off, there are 2 points that I wanted to make. The first one is that when somebody comes to me and says, I have an anger issue, I need to work on it, the first thing I always say to them is, we have to reframe that. You don't have an anger issue. You have an emotional regulation issue.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, and because people will hear that all their lives. Well, you're angry, you're aggressive, you have an anger problem, and that's not true. You had never learned how to effectively emotionally regulate.
Well, and you have to make the distinction. You may feel anger,
Right.
but you are not angry.
Right,
I mean,
and then-
you're not the anger that you feel. You're more than that.
And the second thing then that I want to work on is the idea that anger is really an emotion in our society that probably should be the least felt emotion. Because if you think about it, anger is about protection, right? So there's a threat in my environment.
Or frustration.
Well, why would you be angry because you're frustrated? I mean, it's still protection.
I don't know. I hadn't thought it through, but I think I'll wait and listen and see where you're going.
Okay.
You finish your thought.
Yeah. So anger is about protection. So if there's an external threat, right? So even if I'm feeling frustrated, it's because somebody's not doing something that I think is better. And so then I get frustrated.
Okay.
But still, that's a threat. I'm perceiving that as a threat
Right.
to my integrity in some way.
Or do you control?
Or to my control.
Circumstance.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's always a threat.
Yeah.
And so how often do we really need to be threatened? How often are we actually legitimately threatened in modern Western society?
So that goes back to our previous episode where we were talking about family of origin issues. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that you can learn as a child is if you puff up and get angry, people will give in to you and let you dominate the situation. They
and
won't
you see
make
that
you uncomfortable.
in the adult world all the time.
Absolutely.
We might have a president that does that. I don't think that, but somebody might think that.
Yeah.
You're not going to bite.
I'm not going.
So, but
Or as the president says, some people say that, some people don't. I
right.
don't know.
But
Some people say, I've heard.
I don't have an opinion.
I've heard there are people that say.
Yes.
Yeah.
But so you learn that is a tool, and that's why I always want to, when you're going back to that family of origin issue, to help people to see how were you rewarded for this
Right.
in that family of origin, because you were rewarded.
Yeah.
And that's why you
what's the
continue
payoff?
that pattern today.
Well, I have a conversation with clients on a regular basis. Every behavior costs, and every behavior pays. So let's look at the emotional cost of your behaviors.
Right.
Can you afford the way you're behaving? If you've only learned that you get your way when you're angry, at some point the cost of being angry becomes too expensive because you lose a relationship that you care about, or a job that you care about, or a circumstance, environment that you want to be in is taken away from you
Right.
because you're angry.
Right.
And-
And not only that, but it's not realistic, because going back to my other point, which is, people don't really have much reason legitimately in Western society to feel angry, because there isn't that much threat that we really face. And so a lot of what people are feeling isn't anger, it's hurt. And they're sublimating the hurt. So sublimation is when you take an emotion and rather than expressing it honestly, you dump the energy into something else. They're taking that hurt, they're sublimating it into what they perceive to be a more socially expressive or acceptable expression, and that is the anger. But a lot of what we're feeling that we're expressing as anger is hurt. We know that oftentimes depression is expressed as anger, and that if people could give themselves permission,
Or it's comorbid.
Comorbid could be, yeah. That means occur at the same time.
Right.
But if we could give ourselves permission to express the genuine emotion, which is hurt, which would be sadness, if we give ourselves permission to do that, we're going to have a lot less of that staying around inside of us. You told your son you're going to cry whether you want to or not.
I was being facetious.
I know you're being facetious,
yeah.
but people are going to. I mean, even if you do that if you don't express an emotion, the emotion's not going to leave your body.
Yes.
And so the more that you keep it pent up inside, the more that you're going to have to deal with it. And if you express your hurt as anger, you're never really expressing the hurt.
Not only the more you're going to have to deal with it, the less efficiently you can deal with it.
Right.
Because you limit your options. It gets to be so full that there's no wiggle room for any other feeling, any other behavior. It just has to be angry.
Right.
And as you alluded to.
And that's a great way of saying it, though. Then that's just not as efficient. You're never going to efficiently express other emotions through anger.
Because as you develop, you become less and less primitive in your responses. You become more civilized. You become more capable. You acquire more options. You see more colors.
Right.
And it's like there's a famous test in psychology called the Lauscher color test. And the original version, I think, was 164 color cards. And that now they've reduced it down to an 8-card, a 4-card, primitive form, which you can take, that discriminates your levels of feeling. And the way it's used is they use the color cards, and you lay out 8, 10, 12 cards that are all gradations of colors, and you pick them up in the order that they attract you. Of this group, which one of these do you like the best, and which one of these do you like the best, until you have all of them in a stack. Then they have done enough volumes of studies that they can break that down, the color selection pattern, and say this is going on. This is what goes on in the lives of people that choose these the way that you did. Is it possible that this is going on in your life? So you can do a self-interpretive Lauscher color test. You can buy one off the internet, and there's a lot of research validity to support it.
And so, just for my own edification, would you agree with me that a lot of anger that people express is really sublimated hurt?
Oh, absolutely.
And so then people have to learn how to be able to express the hurt more genuinely, and they have to be able to give themselves permission to be able to do that. And people will be very resistant, especially men are going to be very, at least in my experience of doing therapy, are going to be very resistant to hearing that message and actually being able to wrap their head around what that means.
Yeah, I remember a client that you know as well as I do, who, when told you need to embrace your children and give them some softness, would say, I'm not that kind of father. I'm the strong, sometimes angry father. I'm not the soft, teary one. I'm not the soft, empathic one. And we would both suggest, well, perhaps there's room for both. Perhaps there's a balance shift that you can do, should you choose to, that might make things better for your child. As a caring father, do you want to consider that option?
And that could actually then change the experience of your children and make them different parents themselves. Somewhere along the line, there has to be a change. I think that both of us feel very confident that we have changed our lineage because of the way that we've been parents, that our children had very different experiences of growing up than we had, and that makes them different parents.
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely agree.
Yeah. And, for me, I said to my kids all the time, you'll never know what it was like being me growing up, and there isn't anything in the world that makes me happier than to say,
and I don't want you to know
exactly. And but you'll also be a different parent, and so while I still struggle with some of the scars that I have,
but we used to teach that children do comparative parental analysis around the age of 5 or 6. They start to say, gosh, I wish I could live at Joey's house because Joey gets to eat ice cream. Or I wish I could live at Tommy's house because Tommy gets to go to the movies. They look at the way you parent, and they look at the way what they see and from the outside of the way other parents parent. And they say, well, I want to be like that. And you internalize your own list. You say, when I have children, I will. And when I have children, I won't.
Right.
I won't say to my child, get that look off your face. Stop crying. And, I'll give you something to cry for.
The classic is, I will never say to my child, because I said so.
Yeah.
And anybody who says that
Lie
is going to eat
their
those
own
words.
Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
And so if you are in the audience and you're younger and just starting out and you are very, very devout that you are never going to say, because I said so to your child, good luck.
Yeah, or you're going to, I'm never going to say to my kid, how many times have I told you?
Yes.
Because you'll be saying that. You'll hear yourself say it.
And
Exactly.
and when you do, you will flash back to when you said, I will never say that, and you will probably feel a certain amount of guilt. And what I'm here to say to you is, don't. Everybody does it. It's totally fine. You're not going to hurt your children.
Maybe you feel chagrin.
Yes.
Yeah.
So hopefully this was beneficial for people. As always, the music that appears on Psych with Mike is written and performed by Mr. Benjamin DeClue. Go to the internets, to iTunes, and give us a like and rate us. That is super beneficial. And as always, if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike.